Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts, sports journalist David Todd, and from SteelersDepot.com, Dave Bryan. Just a couple of Daves, chillin', talking Steelers. Now, here's Dave and Dave.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Dave. He's Dave Bryan of SteelersDepot.com, the place to get your latest and greatest Steelers information. And I'm David Todd. It's Season 9, Episode 21. And the Steelers are 0-1. Dave, it's been, 72 hours or so since the Steelers came away with a tie in Cleveland. Still a bad taste in your mouth?
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's a game that not only they should have won, but they should have lost, if that makes any sense. Anytime you turn the football over that many times, you're asking for, and I think I said in the show the other day, if any other team other than maybe the Browns or the Bills in that situation, they probably do lose. There were a lot of positives in that game. I mean, I know it's hard to strip away the turnovers and things like that, but they did do a lot of good things in that game. Unfortunately, the things that they did bad were bad enough to really impact the game. Defensively as a whole, we outlined about, 5 or 6 runs in that third quarter that need to be cleaned up. The containment of Tyrod Taylor was something I worried about ahead of the game that they didn't do well at all. Need to clean that up. A couple of big plays, which, you're going to give up a few big plays during a game. As far as points off of turnovers, the one short field, the touchdown off of off the 1 yard line, hard to fault them there. And we'll get into some guys we thought played well and maybe a few that didn't here in a little bit, but you go through this thing, and that's why I always tell people, look, don't just take our word for it. If you don't have the all 22 on NFL Game Pass, you're really doing a disservice to yourself as a fan, because and additionally,
well, the reality is most people just don't have the time to. They're not doing it for a living, but yeah, you get to see different things, no doubt. That's why the coaches wait to make their evaluation, right?
Right, and that's why I'm now careful too of coming out with some immediate. I'll give some instant reactions of what I think I need to look at and all, but until you dive into that thing, even rewatching the game, the TV broadcast once, just say if you do that, you miss so much stuff, and it's hard to imagine back to the time when we didn't have all 22 and trying to grade things out, because you really so much sticks out to you. And that's why, people say, why do you put yourself through watching these games 10 times? Because quite honestly, I learned something new the 10th time.
Well, the point is, look, most people are just watching for entertainment. I get it. They watch the game, right? But if you watch a second time, you know the plays, you know how the game went, you're not watching the ball all the time. You don't have to watch the ball. You can watch the other side of the line of scrimmage. It's absolutely true, and that's why coaches will sit there and watch a play 5 times, because you want to see what the left tackle does. You want to see what the right tackle does. You want to see, if the wide receiver ran the right route. And that's the beauty of it. You got 11 guys on the field, and they're all working in harmony. And if you watch a play, for all of us, anybody, the best analyst in the game can't watch it once and see everything that happens. So, hopefully that's why people listen, and you do it better than anybody. I'm sure there are not many people who aren't employed by teams in the NFL who watch a game more often than you do.
Well, and it's a labor of love. You constantly learning in these things. And boy, I thought I knew football way back before the All 22 came out. Well, I didn't know anything. You just learn so much since then, and it's a constant learning experience. And that's what we try to do on the site, is to educate and as objectively as we possibly can. And do we get things wrong? Absolutely. In fact, we'll go into a little beef I have with one of my writers here, an instant observation that I found to be, in my opinion, faulty later on in the game here. But where do you want to start off with? You want to start off with Mike Tomlin?
Let's talk a little bit about James Conner, because Look, it's an odd situation for James Conner because obviously if you take the fumble out of that game, you're going to say, the guy put up 190 yards from scrimmage. He was great. The Steelers probably win the game and everything's fantastic. Look, there are a couple things about James Conner's game. Obviously, the fumble stands out. It was maybe the most significant play of the game. It certainly changed the momentum and gave the Browns 7 points. And, you have to think about the numbers James Conner had at halftime and then the numbers James Conner finished up the game. Now, look, I'm not putting any, I'm just the assessment of James Conner was the first half was so good. And, really the third quarter was okay, but a lot of touches in the fourth quarter and overtime. And, we can blame it on a variety of things. Were the holes not there? Did the offense get conservative so the Browns were able to kind of load the box and play against that run? And James caught some short passes in the overtime that he was able to turn into some nice games. But I'm a little surprised, Dave. I mean, I know that Matthew wrote on the site about Jabril Peppers said that, James Conner isn't the explosive back that Le'Veon Bell is. And that was kind of as we've talked about, that was kind of an odd choice of words to me.
Yeah, it was. I don't know if it's so much a little bit of hyperbole in there, just want to make sure to give Le'Veon Bell his due or whatnot. I mean, let's look at James Conner at the half. He had 46 yards rushing and 32 yards receiving. So he had, 78 yards from scrimmage at the half. Is that right?
Yeah, I thought he was up in the 90s. So maybe I'm thinking early third quarter because I was thinking he had 11. When he had 11 carries, he was averaging 6 or 7 yards a carry. Maybe it was the end of the third quarter. I think he was averaging 7 yards a carry at the end of the third quarter and finished the game averaging 4 point whatever it was because he ended up obviously with the 31 carries. He carried the ball a lot even after the fumble.
Yeah, and he touched the football only 11 times in the first half and put up, as I mentioned there, 78 yards. So, I mean, he had a good second half. Now, if you want to whittle it down to the fourth quarter there, is it understandable that maybe, and I had to go look back at
this. Yeah, I should have broken this out before bringing it up. So you make a good point that I think, obviously the Steelers get those 2 touchdowns. It's 7-0 at halftime and they go up 21-7. They answer the Browns. They get 1 in the third and 1 as the quarter transitions from third to fourth. And Conner was, I think at that point, Conner was having a big statistical game. I think at the end of the day, he ends up with big numbers, but he ends up with big numbers a little bit in the fashion of Le'Veon Bell last year. And that if you touch the ball, what do you end up with? 35 touches, 36 touches with the catches, maybe even more than that. When you touch the ball that many times, you're going to put up, by default, you're going to put up some level of yardage.
I have no, look, when you're up, 14 points or whatever it was, the teams know what you're going to do. You're going to try to run the ball, and to the Steelers' fault a few times. And look, it's funny how I mentioned that 3rd and 10 play, right? or in the other podcast, and now everybody jumping on that. In fact, Ben was even asked specifically about that play during his radio interview yesterday morning. There was some curious conservatism. Is that a word? Later on in the game, I think fourth quarter specifically, deep in their own end, they really stuck to running the football and almost resigned. And in fact, that drive right before the punt that should have been their football, So, look, overall, I mean.
Now let me ask you: Do you look at it and do you say that, look, we can all say it in hindsight now, if they win 21-7, we're obviously not having a conversation. Do you blame Mike and Randy about how they called the game there?
No, not necessarily. I would have liked them, like I said the other day, the play that I had circled in that second half that I would say I lost sleep over, but we know that's impossible, was that 3rd and 10 play.
Specifically, that's which one?
The 3rd and 10, they were creeping into Browns territory there. That's the one that I said, man, if you're gonna, I have no problem running.
This was Conner, so they end up with. So this is from the 30. They end up at the 37, and so it's a 51-yard field goal of the punt. That one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I said, look, I have no problem if you're going to run there, but go into it knowing that's a 2-down situation. that kind of thing. No, I mean, look, no, overall, and I think I said this the other day, James Conner, I thought played well. Now, are there things, the fumble, you cannot overlook the fumble. Okay, you just simply can't. Yes, Alejandro Villanueva missed the block on that play, and that helped lead to that. But you still, if you hold on to that football in that situation there, then we're just talking about Villanueva blowing a block for a loss. Okay, but the fumble really made a difference in that situation. And the other thing that kind of stuck out to me with Conner is, look, the pass protection has improved. But he just needs to do a better job of eating up some grass before he takes on blocks. Okay, and that's things that should have been expected with his game. As long as he's making steps forward, which I believe he is in that area, I think he can get better at it. Now, is he ever going to be the pass protector that Le'Veon Bell is? Hard to say.
Not many are.
Not many are, exactly. I mean, look, he showed he's got some hands out of the backfield. Look, I'm in no way, shape, or form am I putting any of this on Conner. I just think when you look at that fourth quarter, the Browns expected him to run, and the conditions, I think, dictated that. Some of the looks might have dictated that as well too. Could Ben maybe checked out a few of those with some passes. Make no mistake about it that a lot of the brunt of what happened offensively in this game goes on Ben Roethlisberger.
No doubt. And that's where I was going to go next with getting back to Ben and his performance. Obviously, you have a QBR of 22, and that's a scale of 0 to 100. So I don't need to tell you where that stands on the scale. And particularly, if you look at Taylor, the passer ratings, they were both. I think Taylor was 51 and Ben was 60. And passer rating is just that, passer rating. Taylor obviously get points for what he was able to do with his legs. That's not in passer rating. That is in QBR. Situational stuff is important, and Ben turning the ball over, when he did, where he did, was significant in that, in that whole, in the whole outcome. And again, we talked about it Monday. I won't belabor the point, but Ben on the road, it just wasn't a good performance, Dave. So let me ask you this, because we're gonna confront this next year and every year going forward across the NFL. Look, we saw guys come out and have good games. We saw guys come out and have terrible games. Ben had a bad game. A lot of people will say it's because he doesn't play enough in the preseason. How much credence do you put in that?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up too. That was in my mental notes to discuss, and I think a lot of people would like us to discuss it as well too. I understand it. I understand it most definitely. Ben claims that, that has nothing to do with it, blah, blah, blah. But remember, Antonio Brown didn't play the entire preseason, right?
Correct. There's plenty of guys around the league who hardly played. I mean, T.J. Watt didn't play the preseason.
Right. Ideally, here's where I am on that. I would like to possibly see moving forward Ben play maybe the first quarter in the second preseason game and then a entire half in the third preseason game and see how it goes from there. Right now, he's not even playing a half of football, is he?
He hasn't been, no, and it's been that way for a while. And obviously, look, we know why it happens. Is that there is however small you want to say it is, there's a risk of injury. Don't want to lose your quarterback. I mean, look, we saw Aaron Rodgers go down in the first half of the Green Bay game. You wondered if he was out for the year. It can be that was a pretty innocuous play. I mean, it's not like Rodgers took a big hit. He went down and guy came down on top of him, and all of a sudden, he tweaks his knee, and we'll see what his status is. But I mean, that's the reason you could throw your season away. So is it worth throwing out having a rusty performance or two to take that risk to essentially zero because he doesn't play?
Well, for a coach that supposedly doesn't live in his fears, it sure seems like he lives in his fears.
That's a good point. Good point.
You'll have plenty of time to think about living in a van down by the river when you're living in a van down by the river, right? I understand, and and I just said where I'm at on this. I think I would like to see him play a quarter in the second one, and then at least a half in the third one. And obviously it's a results based thing here that we're going to talk about. If he gets injured in playing in that second preseason game in the first quarter, everybody's going to say, "Hey, shouldn't have played him in that second game. What happened to only playing him 3 series in the third game?" So, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. But yeah, I it wouldn't hurt my feelings to see him play.
Do you blame his performance on not playing in the preseason? Because you've heard, when I talk about it, I don't think for T.J. Watt or for Le'Veon Bell, for rushing the passer, how much time do you need? I don't know. I don't think all that much. You're rushing the passer. That it's not now if you're dropping into coverage and trying to be part of a unit and your schemes are different, those things are important. But if you're just rushing the passer, you're rushing the passer.
Here's where I think it impacts. Look, football preparation, X's and O's, IQ, and all like that during preseason. Throw that out the window, right? Because you're not scheming any. You're scheming for that third preseason game, probably early, but after that, So let's throw the football IQ preparation out of it. I think just from the whole timing standpoint and the real game speed standpoint, that's where he could use the extra work. How much can you simulate that during practices when?
He's the guy you're going to simulate at least for, right? Because he's never taken a hit.
Exactly. So. Does he need another? How many extra snaps are we talking about? 30?
Right.
Is that's right? Where do you? Okay, you got my opinion. Where do you stand on it?
Well, look, I don't want to be hypocritical about what I say because I've said it doesn't matter for Le'Veon Bell, and I've said it doesn't really matter for Cam Hayward or T.J. Watt. For Ben, look. He's throwing to one guy he knows in Antonio Brown, and they didn't get it right every time. And he knows Juju, so he's got 2 guys he knows. The tight ends he's probably pretty familiar with. The rest of them not so much. But what did he take? 500 reps in practice, probably, from the time they got there at the end of July. Do I think it makes a big difference? I don't. But obviously, I don't have evidence in my corner, and I'm an evidence-based analyst, so I would argue against myself, saying, well, how can you say that when you see him go out and perform like that? I haven't looked at, we haven't gone back to all the week ones. I know he wasn't good in week 1 last year in Cleveland. So, but then we watched Sam Darnold, who took a ton of reps in the preseason. He goes out and throws a pick 6 in his first pass, and he has a good game. Sam Bradford throws 5 interceptions. I don't know. It's a crazy game, and I guess the answer I would come down to is a sample size of 1 probably isn't enough to make a correct judge or a kind of valid logic-based judgment. And if he comes out against Kansas City this week and throws for 350 again with no interceptions and 4 touchdowns, was it really the 70 snaps and 40 throws against the Browns that tuned him up and made him play well this week?
If you went in the wormhole right now, didn't come out till next preseason, and I didn't tell you how he played the rest of this season, and Tomlin threw him out there for the first quarter of the second preseason game and a half of the third preseason game, would you take issue with it?
I'd be surprised. I wouldn't. If you made me bet on what Tomlin will do, he'll do exactly the same thing.
Well, that's not the question. Would you take issue with it?
Oh, no, I wouldn't take issue with it. No, I don't have issue with guys playing. I don't have issue with guys playing ever. Guys get hurt. It's part of the game. I don't have a problem with guys playing.
All right. While we're talking about performances, let's continue on before we get to Tomlin and all. What was your initial take about or thought about the play of Alejandro Villanueva coming immediately after the game?
Yeah, well, so this is the thing. It's Ali Villanueva wasn't going against Joe Schmo. He was going against a guy that, we both think is going to be a first-team All-Pro. So I was just saying, he got beat. He was the worst of the two. Myles Garrett had a big game, but I expect Myles Garrett to have a lot of big games. So grading on a curve, I'd give him a C. That was my thought coming out, and that's probably where I still am.
See, I'm a little bit higher than that. And, Matthew wrote about, look, if you look at the stat book of this game, you will see that Myles Garrett had Where is it here? 5 total tackles, or no, five credited tackles. One assist, 6 total tackles, 2 sacks, 2 quarterback hits, which those are the sacks. 1 pass defense and 2 forced fumbles. I mean, that looks like a monster day, right? That looks like you pay that guy. That's why he drafted him first round, right?
Absolutely.
All right. Now, when you go inside those numbers, what did he do? Where did his 2 sacks happen? His first sack was a 5-second sack. Okay.
Yeah, you put that up there, and that's right. Look, there's no doubt Ben held the ball forever in this game.
Okay, a 5-second sack after Allie had ran him all the way around the edge. Myles Garrett had to go around Canton to get the Ben on that one. So are you really going to put blame on Villanueva for a 5-second sack?
But that's a good question, by the way. In the book, I'm asking, I don't know the answer to this. If that were a 10-second sack or a 5-second sack, does that go against Villanueva no matter the time? Is there a point where they say, okay, at 5 seconds, everybody's off?
The beauty of the sack is in the eye of the beholder, right? I mean, there is no.
It was like, when Pro Football Focus does it or anybody's grading guys, is there a point, like, does he, let's say you're grading, well, we are grading the game. You grade the game. So we just talked about it. So does Villanueva get a passing grade on that play? Or does he, if you're given a pass fail, does he get a pass or a fail?
On that play?
On that play.
He gets a pass. I think you have to look how it happens, too. Now, obviously, if he gives up a pressure right up the gut or something, it still takes another, 2.5 seconds for the sack to occur. Well, okay, he allowed the initial pressure, which led to this, which led to that. Okay, so you just have to watch the play. I think not all 5-second sacks I don't think are created equal in those situations.
Agreed.
So I think if you look at that play, however, you will see that. In no way, shape, or form should that be on. I'm trying to look at what PFF has for Villanueva as far as sacks allowed here, allowed pressure here. They did not even charge him with a sack in that game, and they only charged him with 1 hurry in that game. And I can tell you probably when that hurry was actually on the play that forced Ben from the pocket that Myles Garrett hit him after the fact. And Myles Garrett wasn't even the rusher on that play. Myles Garrett had dropped. Okay? So even Pro Football Focus, which I take issue with a lot of what they do, but I think they got this right. No sacks, no hits, 1 hurry allowed by Alejandro Villanueva in that game. So they obviously did not view the 5-second sack as a sack on Villanueva, and I think that's the right call there. Okay?
Right.
Let's assume I'm right. And go from there. The other sack in the game happened when? From Garrett.
I don't know what they called him, the sack fumble in overtime.
Right. That was a blown trap RPO, and Villanueva had nothing to do with Garrett on that.
Castro kind of trying to push him around.
Right.
If it's a good snap, that play doesn't happen like that.
Right, and I broke that play down last night on SteelersDepot.com for any of you. Based on Ben's comments and then based on the tape, I'd show you a bunch of different. That was what they call a trap RPO. Villanueva blocks down inside. Garrett's a free runner. In fact, Ben. Look, Ben gave. He says he gave Juju the high sign on that to do something other than he was supposed to do. It was actually Justin Hunter. That ran the underneath slant underneath Juju run the slot fade in that.
Yep.
And Hunter was open. If that's a clean snap, Ben gets that ball out, and that might be 40 yards. I mean, it's at least 20, I think. in that situation, okay? If you look at the defense, though, and obviously you don't know Myles Garrett's probably going to come crashing. Myles Garrett effectively took himself. DeCastro had to chase him up the field.
So that's it's an interesting play call to try to leave, to by design leave Garrett. He's not unblocked, but if he's going to come inside, he's going to face DeCastro, and if he's going to go wide, he's going to be out of the play because of the design of the play. So it's an interesting, look, you got the most dangerous defender on the field. You're letting himself come upfield and put himself out of the play, and that's exactly what's supposed to happen. Except the play, instead of taking a second and a half, took 3.5 seconds or 5 seconds, whatever it took.
All right, so ideally, hindsight 2020, when Ben fumbled that, when that snap was low to his left, if he picks that thing up real quickly and hands it to James Conner, that might be you want to talk about another possible 20-yard gain on that left side there. I think Ben's mind, unfortunately, was made up pre-snap. He gave Justin Hunter the high sign. I think Ben's mind was made up, right? Regardless of what he saw, that as soon as he got that snap, he's getting rid of the football quick to Justin Hunter on the snap. And he's right. He said on the radio yesterday that's probably a big play. Unfortunately, the extra time it took to go down and get that football and try to get it out, then Garrett, he's there. He's on top of him. So once again, you cannot put that sack on Garrett either. If you go through
on Alley,
right, or right, you can't credit Garrett for the sack on Alley on that one. It's a busted play, really, in that aspect of it. Bad, but you want to put it on somebody, put it on Marquise Pouncey. That's where the sack belongs in that situation.
No doubt. That's exactly right. He probably, that probably hadn't been discussed very much, but that is on Pouncey.
Right. Okay. So now we've eliminated both sacks from Villanueva. I told you where the hurry was. Okay. In that game. Now I'm serious. I was like, am I missing something on this thing? I went through and I've watched this thing 7 times already. I went through every offensive play real quick last night on Y'all 22. Villanueva, now the James Conner fumble, that by far Villanueva, that was a horrible attempt of he was trying to push Garrett up the field.
Yeah, again, it's a little bit of moving your feet on that play. Again, he's thinking, look, it's going the other way. If I push Garrett up the field, then this isn't going to be a problem. But obviously, he gets inside him, and that's the problem. He comes up and gets around him. He gets around him, and then it felt like, if you just watched how the play ended up, you'd say, well, of course he had to beat him inside to get to where he got to. He just beat it. It was so fast, and Villanueva didn't get him up the field, and he was able to crash down the line of scrimmage in a second. He got around him and down the line of scrimmage. It was a great play by him.
Right. That's what that guy's supposed to do, right? First round draft pick. Great play, and it was the single worst play Villanueva had in that game. Unfortunately, it was costly. Now let me tell you how PFF graded this out with him. His game. They have him down as a 68.7 pass blocking grade in the green. Okay. I think they were a little hard on him in that area, but overall, in the green, that's a good grade. Okay. I think they docked him a little bit too much. Now Garrett did have I guess they're dinging because Garrett got on one of those pass sets. Garrett in the second half, Garrett got his hands up at the line of scrimmage. He didn't get penetration, but I think he got credited with a tip football on that. And that's one that almost got intercepted. Do you remember that play?
The tip.
The tipped one
when was it?
Third or fourth quarter. It was in the second half. Ben tries to get the ball out quickly over to the left-hand side. It was bang, bang. And Garrett manages. He's in the passing lane. He gets a hand up, and he tips it, and it almost was picked off.
Yep.
Anyway, I think they dinged him a little bit too much on the pass block because really Garrett didn't do anything. Like I said, the one hurry in that game that Villanueva gave up was the play that Ben took the roughing the passer on, and Garrett wasn't even involved in that other than chasing down Ben. Right. Other than roughing the passers. So let's just assume that 68.7 was the grade there. They have Villanueva as a 48.0 run blocking grade, and they must severely dinged him for that fumble on Connor. I mean, really, because if you go back and look at this play-by-play,
they don't weight plays, right? I mean, every play counts the same.
No, I think they weight these things, David. I really do. I would like to hear their explanation on the run blocking grade on Villanueva. And like I said, we started talking about this. I do take issue with a lot of what they do. Now they do a lot of great stuff in this, but I really take issue with the run block grade. I'll fully admit that Connor fumble, that was horrible. I mean, it was the single worst play of the game for Villanueva, but to ding him that much, it just seems like it's very result-driven. I wonder what his run block grade would have been had Connor not fumbled that football is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember Connor's runs. I don't know if you have the charting there in front of you.
Well, go look at
Did they run over the left side much?
Surely, they did. And hold on.
I remember DeCastro pulling a couple times over the left side.
Just look at the touchdown run. They had a couple of big runs. Hold on a minute here, and I'll pull you up some directionals.
Yeah, both those carries, the 17-yarder and the 22-yarder, were over the left side, right?
Let's see. Offense. Only one play off left tackle, 4 yards. 10 plays off of left guard, 5 yards average per carry. That ranked 5th in the NFL for week 1. Up the middle, which has nothing to do with Villanueva, obviously. But yeah, they ran 11 plays rushing
over the left side.
Over to the left side, and they averaged almost 5 yards per carry.
Yeah, no, that drive, the 17 and the 22-yarders. I mean, DeCastro pulls, they blow that one open, and a clear sailing for him. So look, okay, so that's interesting. I mean, look, what's your assessment of the rest of the line?
I haven't gone player by player on that. I've been busy arguing on the Twitter machine about Villanueva. Overall, I thought it was fine. To be, Pouncey, obviously, you got to ding him, on that snap and all like that. But I mean, just look at Connor's numbers overall. You're not supposed to do that, but I think overall, I thought it was fine. It was enough to win. Obviously. I have not gone player by player other than Villanueva.
Okay, so what else did you find from the tape that you didn't see originally?
Let's see here. I'll throw out some grades real quick for you on the offensive line. Chukwuma Okafor had a decent game on the 17 snaps. 60. He was the Steelers' high, according to PFF, highest graded offensive lineman, 66.3. Finney only played 2 snaps, 64.9. Gilbert, 63.3. But don't forget that Gilbert, and you could put the stopwatch on that one as well too. Gave up that strip fumble or whatever you want to call it near at the end of the game there. DeCastro 61.3, Foster 57.9. I want to go back and watch Foster's game overall. And then Pouncey was the lowest graded, 43.5, and it makes you wonder how much of that was related to that bad snap. Yep. All right, other players. I mentioned on the show the other day, I thought Sean Davis had a good first game at free safety. I think the tape confirms that. I think I said that Bostic, played well. I think the tape confirms that as well. Bud Dupree, I thought, had a nice game. People want to talk about what T.J. Watt did in that game. I thought Bud had a nice game. Overall, with the pressures and play against the run, like I said, there were a lot of good things to take away from this game on both sides of the football. So those are the things that stuck out the most to me. What I want to do to wind out the week here is study more individual line play moving forward. I've got a good grasp on how the defense played overall. I mean, more than anything, I have more issue with some of the substitution issues and those 5 or 6 run plays that we mentioned in that third or fourth quarter, whenever it was, that need to be closely examined. But look, I don't think they lost. I mean, technically they tied the game, but it feels
they lost. Right. As you said, they lost.
It feels like a loss, but I'm not as doom and gloom as I think most people are overall coming out of this thing. If you don't turn that football over 6 times.
Sure, no doubt. Obviously, it's hey. Well, let's get into Tuesdays with Tomlin and Ben. But first, guys, ever since we started the podcast, people have been asking us for advice and where to bet and who to bet on and all that stuff. And you're probably as good at it as we are. But if you're looking for a place to do it, there's no better place to go than mybookie.ag. Who you're betting on is just as important as who you're betting with. That's why we always tell people to bet mybookie.ag. Trust us, guys. They're the best bet this season. They've been in business for years. Great reviews online. Look, we've used the site. Mobile site's really easy to use. You lay down some cash and you win big. Do it today. First week of the season in the books. We saw some upsets. We saw some easy covers. I think in hindsight, Dave, I think people got it right on the Bills maybe being the worst team in the league, and Nate Peterman's man, his NFL career has been 2 starts and two of the worst starts you could ever have, and he gets benched this week for Josh Allen. So, if you're against the Bills last week, you're probably a winner. Probably get against the Bills again this week. So, listen, go to mybookie.ag. You win, they pay. They have in-game live betting, the most rewarding player perks in the business. Fantasy guys, Dave's fantasy. How'd you do in your week 1 fantasy?
I did fantastic, thanks to one of the super main leagues that I have. Aaron Rodgers coming back in that game, and I also had both receivers along with him, Adams and Cobb.
Cobb won the game, won it for you, right?
Right. I mean, it was not looking good when Aaron Rodgers left that thing, and then I was waiting on the Monday night game. I had only a 30-point lead and was facing Derek Carr and Amari Cooper, and I'm thinking, I don't know about this one. And Carr and Amari Cooper both laid an egg on that, so I got the double W in that one. Thanks mainly to Aaron Rodgers, Cobb, and Devontae Adams.
Yeah, we'll get to Martavis Bryant re-signing with the Raiders, looking for that as they talked about not having a deep threat. He re-signs. But anyway, in fantasy, guys, on mybookie.ag, you can bet the over-under on individual fantasy points each player will score. So they'll match your deposit dollar for dollar. Get 100 in there. They'll match 100. I think it's minimum 100 to get the match. You get up to 1,000. And if you use the promo code TERRIBLE, that'll activate the offer. So check it out. First deposit, 100%. So, if you're thinking about putting in 100 a week, you're probably better off putting in 300 the first week and get that match, because they won't do it after your initial deposit. So visit mybookie.ag online today. It's MYBOOKIE. Don't forget to use the promo code TERRIBLE when creating your account to create the bonus. You play, you win, you get paid. All right. Martavis Bryant apparently got paid. We're all sitting here waiting for this suspension to come down, and something's odd about this. Again, it seems like everybody in the world, certainly I and you, and feel like he's got a year plus suspension coming, and the Raiders just re-signed him. So is something different than what we think is happening?
I don't know. They haven't, as you said, they haven't mentioned the suspension yet. I think the temperature that I'm reading is they think one's coming still. Just in the in the meantime, they're going to use. This smells like desperation. This smells like a overreaction on the Raiders' part, if you ask me. Now, look, can he stretch the field? Yes. We'll see how big a difference it makes. But this is a guy that seems to have irritated Gruden and the Raiders ever since he arrived, right? So, we'll see how quickly they can get him in there, and if it ends up helping a guy like Amari Cooper. But to me, it stinks of desperation, a one-game desperate move.
Little downside, it would appear. I mean, you sign him, you see, but they did talk immediately after the game about, or yesterday they talked about who's stretching the field on that team. And when your answer is, well, we can get Amari Cooper going deep, he can do it. That's not the right answer. So, I don't know if it's desperation, but it's certainly a need. And if he's going to be able to play, he's going to be able to play. It's just if this, again, I assume it's the appeal process they're going through behind closed doors, and it could come down today. It could come down 3 weeks from now. This is, there's not a lot of transparency going on in the NFL. So we'll see what happens. But, he was in camp with him, and there seems to be little downside other than the fact that you may get him for a game and then not get him at all. But, yeah, you're right. They need more in that passing game. And I'll tell you, if you watch that game, you probably felt pretty good about the Raiders in the first half, but, didn't hold.
No, it did not. All right, Tomlin Tuesday. Mike Tomlin went over the injury report. Started off with, who was it? Joe Hayden in that hamstring. We'll see. We got the old. We'll see how he does. Let this week be a guide. Yada yada. We'll see. I mean, at this point, I'm not expecting him to play. But we have Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday practice to evaluate. David DeCastro, when he left that game against the Browns, it was evidently because of a fractured hand. But he, of course, returned. We'll see. One would think that he should be fine moving forward. Mike Tomlin didn't sound overly concerned about that. He also mentioned Tyson Alualu with a shoulder and Ben Roethlisberger with an elbow that could limit Ben at the first portion of the week. And I think those were the four. And he was asked about Vance McDonald later on in the podcast. In the press conference. And in so many words, he said he didn't have it, or he said Vance did not have a setback last week. So I assume Vance McDonald is still alive.
Yeah, so the Hayden one will be interesting, and we saw that so we know who's next on the list to play backup. I would assume at both corners. Cam Sutton is going to get the opportunity, and Cam made a play. He got beat on the touchdown, but whatever. It was the Higgins pass was probably for the Browns the most significant offensive play. Might have been the Rashard Higgins pass down the sideline that set up the touchdown, and that was a really good route. And he just beat Cam Sutton, and it might have been Tyrod's best throw. And then on the touchdown, we've talked about it. Cam wasn't in bad position, but nothing you could do when a beast like Josh Gordon goes up and makes a play like that. Cam, when a guy catches the ball and your arm is between his arms and the ball, and the guy makes the play, then it's a good play by the guy. It's simple as that.
Yeah, I thought he represented himself reasonably well in that game for sure. And the more snaps he's going to get, we'll see. Joe Hayden, I think we talked about this the other day. He hasn't completed a season. I don't think 16 games since his rookie season, and the last few seasons, he's missed quite a few games for one reason or the other due to injury. So hopefully this won't keep him sidelined too terribly long. Mike Tomlin, after that, went into talking about T.J. Watt and Bud Dupree switching in the sides and how he felt about that. And Tomlin said, I think time will tell. I'm not going to try to paint with a broad brush after one performance, but I will say that I'm not surprised that he had an impactful game. It was schematically set up for him to impact the game, and he did. He also mentioned that Bud Dupree, he thought Bud Dupree, I think, did some nice things in that game, which he did. He was asked about Sean Davis playing first game free safety. He saw some nice things there. That's not surprising. Asked about James Washington. I thought the response was good about James Washington, get more snaps, saying, look, he just has to keep working. He's a young guy. He made some plays in preseason, made some plays in training camp, and just has to keep working at it. And I think you're going to slowly start. So he had 11 snaps, I think, in the game against the Browns. I think you're going to slowly start seeing that that tick up. It would make sense to, right?
Yeah, look, it's not the same situation as Mason Rudolph because obviously you're playing a bunch of receivers. You're only playing one quarterback. But you come in, learn the system, get some things down, and work your way in. Antonio Brown didn't start till his third season. We saw Martavis Bryant. It took 8 weeks for him to even get a helmet, I think, if I remember correctly. So no surprise that he's not out there, getting 10 targets in week one. Juju was an anomaly. I don't remember exactly how his trajectory went the first couple of weeks, but Juju obviously had a great season, an incredibly young guy. But I think you pointed it out, Dave. Didn't James Washington line up only on the right side last year for Oklahoma State? I mean, the whole season?
Yeah, pretty much his whole career was predominantly on the right side. Now,
yeah, so you do that stuff, and he's going to learn more than one position. He's trying to remember the routes, the play calls. It's complicated stuff, and these guys come in from college systems where maybe they throw the ball a million times, but you're looking at the signboard on the side for the call, and it's just are you running a fly, you're running an out, you're running a drag. You got about 5 things. That's all you got to remember. You line up the same place. You're not really reading the defense. It's just it's an offense that's read and go. So I'm not at all surprised we are where we are, and I don't think anybody should be concerned that it's taking James Washington a long time. It's a different world.
I agree 100% with that. And look, we saw him line up some on the left side during the preseason, so we know. And he made, the few times he did make some big plays at Oklahoma State from the left side. He just wasn't over there. I mean, I would venture a guess that 3% of his entire college snaps were spent on the left side. So not a lot, but he did make plays from that side. So that's encouraging. And like I said, saw it during the preseason as well too. How much did that abdominal injury play a role in him maybe missing some preparation ahead of week one? Obviously he wasn't on the injury report last week, so that shouldn't have impacted him, but maybe just some of that, some missed practice time ahead of that kind of limited him being included in that week one game plan. But I'm not worried about him whatsoever. Like I said, I think you'll slowly start seeing his offensive snaps tick up, and really at some point, by the middle of this season, David, depending on the health of the rest of the team, Justin Hunter is going to be back on that inactive list, I think.
But by when? The middle of the season.
Middle of the season, yeah.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. I mean, it would be a good sign, because look, he's going to get a helmet every week. It's very interesting. We talked about a few weeks ago, or when they made the trade, say he gets a kind of 6 to 8 week tryout, and then maybe Eli Rogers, if things don't go well, Eli Rogers gets the opportunity again. I don't know that one game is a defining thing, and if Switzer were to fumble a couple over the next few weeks, then maybe you'd look at it differently. But obviously we're all going to agree on this. He is firmly entrenched as the Steelers' return guy right now.
Right. Let's dissect something else I think probably the listeners want us to talk about. And it was something Mike Tomlin was asked, and it kind of plays back into our conversation earlier in the show about James Conner, David. Mike Tomlin was asked, was there any thought on using Stephon Ridley, at any point during that game against the Browns, or was Conner performing well enough that you just went with him? And, Mike Tomlin, so many words, said, look, we have no reservations about using any of our guys who are suited for the game, and we are willing and capable. James Conner was doing well, was in great physical condition, like we mentioned in here several times. We infused Ryan Switzer in some by concept. That's just really kind of how the game unfolded. So the question is, would it have made a difference in, let's say, that fourth quarter if you would have brought a fresh guy in Stephon Ridley?
Yeah, it's certainly second guessing, but I would have used another back at some point in that game. I mean, I just would give, for me, it would have been Ridley. I would have given, like they did with James Conner last year. I just, Conner got a series now and then, particularly early in the season. I would have given Ridley, even though James was doing really good things. Ridley, he has shown in his limited time with the Steelers that he has been productive. Again, games that were somewhat meaningless, to get the Texans game or the last game of the season. But he's run okay. I don't have any problem. If Mike believes in him, just have James Conner watch a couple plays, give him a series, and go with it. But I don't think it was a game deciding thing. That's just, I'm surprised with Mike. We've seen him have Le'Veon Bell be the bell cow and be the guy. But even when that was the case in its biggest way, there were still some other guys getting some carries, and I was just a little surprised. What we didn't see is we've seen during Mike's tenure him try to find a third down back role. He's done it with D'Angelo Williams, with some different guys. Put him in there. Who's the short yardage back, whatever. But all of a sudden it's James Conner, and James Conner is going to be the man for all seasons.
Yeah, I would expect. I don't think you can keep expecting Conner to play 98% of the snaps. So, yeah, I think you do need to get him out of there a series or two. And perhaps we'll see that against the Chiefs, right?
Yeah. Okay. So anything else from Mike or Ben that stuck out for you?
Let's see. Not so much Ben, I don't think. But Ben did describe that 3rd and 10 play as an RPO. I'm going to write about that later on. I think one thing that we probably want to address quickly was, what did you think about Mike Tomlin's response to being asked about that tweet from Antonio Brown, which has since been deleted, where it seemingly looked like Antonio Brown was threatening a writer that had that piece about his social media behavior or whatnot?
It's the stuff that I like commenting on least, and the person who probably likes it less than me is Mike.
Let me read you his response. Guys, don't ask me about social media things. We can talk all day about things that are online or on the internet or on social media. I just choose to stay away from it because it's a waste of my time. There's very little accountability. There's very little journalistic integrity, etc. Guys say things they don't mean. I talk to my teenagers about it all the time. Let's keep it professional and in the real. I think that's appropriate in this setting.
Yeah, and that's exactly. I think it was a choice of words there that was a little dicey for Mike. Journalistic probably wasn't the word that he should have used because it maybe sounds like he's pointing his finger at journalists. He's not. My interpretation of what he means there is if you write something, you're the journalist, so it's the integrity has to come from you. And so I think he's not. I don't think he's pointing fingers at writers or saying fake news. He's saying. Anybody can go on, and in this case, it's in particular, we're talking about Twitter, obviously. Anybody can go on and say anything, and there's no accountability because, oftentimes people don't even have their name behind their account. So you don't know who it is, and they can pop off, and, it is what it is. So I think generally he's right. I don't have any – I agree. Antonio Brown –
He needs to be more careful on social media. It's the whole optics thing here, right?
Yeah, of course. And his optics are bad a lot. It's just he's so damn good. If he weren't good, we wouldn't be worrying about it. And he's so good that everything he does gets attention. And there is certainly a view amongst many people, and people I know who know him way better than I do, that he can be a complete pain in the ass when the cameras and the lights aren't shining in his face.
Should Mike Tomlin have surely there's somebody, Bert or somebody, that monitors the player's social media activity.
Well,
right?
I think you're right in the sense that they monitor and just say, hey, get that off there. I don't think they're taking stuff to Mike. I don't think that stuff goes up. I'm sure there's somebody in the organization whose job it is, and it's not Mike's.
Right.
Now, see, if something were outrageous, if it were multiples worse than what Antonio Brown said, everybody in the organization is going to know about it. So, of course, at some level, it goes all the way up to Art. But I don't think that the run-of-the-mill stuff is going to Mike.
If you're Mike Tomlin, do you pull Antonio aside at this point and say, man, take it easy here?
How old is Antonio Brown? Is he 30 now?
Yeah, right there, right?
If you don't know now, are you going to know ever? I don't think so. But I don't. This goes back to this is a conversation for another day. But we have it all year, every year, as long as Mike Tomlin's going to be coached. It's going to go back to: are you the player's friend? Are you the player's disciplinarian? Is there enough discipline in the organization? I always come back to the point: you got 70 guys between the age of 20 and 35, and they're not all going to do the same thing. They're not all going to think the same way. And no matter what you do, you're not going to keep them all in line. No matter if you're you take the Tom Coughlin approach or you take the laissez-faire, hands-off approach, guys are going to screw up. Doesn't matter which way you go.
I had one time many moons ago, I tried to assistant coach I think it was a 10-year-old soccer team. That didn't last but a couple of weeks. I couldn't do it. I couldn't take it at all. I already drank at the time. It made me drink more. I just couldn't imagine trying to oversee that, kind of oversee that many people. I mean, and do the other things associated with the job on top of it. It's just bad optics. No, I'm not advocating bench Antonio Brown or anything. I'm not so sure though. I don't take him aside and say, hey man, take it easy a little bit here. Just look. I understand you have a beef with that writer for the way he portrayed you or whatnot, but
That's where you need a life coach. And I don't know what maybe your position coach or maybe your head coach or maybe your offensive coordinator. It's just, I don't know, at some point it's more than just, did you run the right route? And here's what the defense is doing and you got to make a play. I mean, at some point, you take guys under your wing and it might be an older teammate. And that's not going to be the case here with Antonio Brown at this point in his career. He's not letting anybody take him under their wing. And you just, I think at some point you just say, okay, it is what it is. And I think for the Steelers and Antonio Brown at this point in his career and his life, it is what it is. I mean, it's not Des Bryant, it's not Terrell Owens type over the top stuff, but it's just continued. It's just continued kind of the way I look at it. It's continued nonsense.
Minor irritations that seem to be happening every other week.
So, by the way, wait for our beat writer and our preview of the Chiefs. We're going to do that on Friday. Our guy, Adam Teicher, I think is how we've had him on before. Adam's great. It's just the one day this week he couldn't do it was Wednesday, so we've pushed him back to Friday. So we'll do our game picks and have Adam and get into it because obviously the Chiefs had a big game. Pat Mahomes. There's an article on Ringer.com. You can read about the aerial attack of Pat Mahomes in his second career start, 4 TDs, Tyreek Hill having a huge day. It's going to be a challenge for the Steelers, Dave. Again, I mentioned it on Monday. I think a lot of people, me included, said, look, you get a guy coming in with one of the first starts in his career coming into Pittsburgh, so you probably win that one. And then you get Tampa, and Jameis Winston's not going to play, and Tampa's not that good, so you get that one. And, maybe with 1 week in the books, our perspective looking at those two games is a little bit different.
Yeah, Ryan Fitzpatrick blew it up.
Fitzmagic. Get it right, Dave. Fitzmagic.
Fitzmagic, the beard. He had a heck of a game there. Some final notes on Mike Tomlin. Boy, you could tell he is irritated about that punt, right?
The punt, yeah.
Did you see my slow-mo of that?
I did not, but what is this? Is this Mike's 11th year? I don't know that I've heard him comment on a specific play and say, essentially say they got it wrong and I don't understand it. Maybe, that doesn't happen once a season. So that was an unusual, I won't say tirade, that's overstating it, but discussion. Mike doesn't discuss plays that are in the books and in the past. He's not that kind of guy, and he says he's not that kind of guy, but he obviously pointed it out and pointed out the Myles Garrett situation as well.
Right. Why if they're going to comment on that Myles Garrett, that shouldn't be a roughing call. Then where's his response to this? This seemingly fumble on the punt. That kind of. He definitely sent a shot. That's for sure. Right.
Yep. No doubt. He made it known that he was not happy.
Let's see. Anything else? I think we covered the bulk of that. The Chiefs were just starting to get into the breakdown on them and the tape from that game. There, obviously, Tyreek Hill was the big producer in that game. What do you have? Like 9 catches, a bazillion yards, and a couple of touchdowns, and returned a punt. I mean, so that guy.
First touch of the season for the Chiefs. First touch of the season, 90 yards going the other way.
I mean, that's a guy that you definitely worry about. Mahomes has an arm. I'll give him that. He
does have a big arm.
That kid does have an arm. And look, I mean, their defense let the Chargers do some things in that game. So, it's not all doom and gloom, I don't think, when it comes to that. All right, anything else that we did not get to? An update. Le'Veon Bell obviously has not reported to the Steelers yet, so, I mean, he's destined to miss another game here. What do you think about MJD playing I've Got a Secret? I
think both of us have let our feelings be known about MJD.
I mean, You're in the media, David.
Yeah, you know the answer, you tell people because somebody else might get the story, so you don't sit on much.
Right. He claims that he knows when Bell is going or plans to report, and he says he ain't saying. And he works for NFL Network.
Whatever.
So anyway, what did you think about? Look, I don't want to beat on Rich Eisen too bad. I think Rich Eisen does tremendous work. But did you listen to that tirade of his yesterday on Rich Eisen?
I did not. I was traveling yesterday. I did not hear that.
He's saying, if I'm the Detroit Lions right now, I pick up the phone and I call about trading for Le'Veon Bell and this, that, and the other, and it just, they just don't.
What was he going to give up?
He didn't say. He says they should call to inquire about Le'Veon Bell and get him in, and exhaust all avenues, what not to acquire Le'Veon Bell. Here's the thing that people just don't get. Look, I understand people wanting the tag pulled. I understand people wanting him traded and all like that. But think about the reality and all that. Not only does it set a bad precedent for future negotiations, which we know the Steelers are hardliners when it comes to precedent and dealing with players with contract. They're not going to let the player dictate them doing something. So let's throw that out there. When he goes in to sign that tag, parts of that contract are still negotiable. As Joel Corey even said in my interview with him the other day. In other words, if Le'Veon Bell wants to, he can negotiate that you can't trade me. Or I have to have a final say if you trade me after I sign this tag and all like that. And then let's look at it from the other perspective. They can't trade him until he signs that tag. Okay, so let's assume.
And the other thing is, obviously, you're not trading a guy under a long-term deal. I mean, if he gets traded to the Lions, if I'm Le'Veon Bell and I've already spent this amount of time,
I'm not signing a long-term deal.
Right.
And you can't. That's the thing. You can't.
Right. You got to wait till the end of the NFL season. And so then that team has given up whatever they gave up, which would be something of substance, to get them for now, let's say 12 games. I mean, look, yeah, I'm with you. It's almost not worth talking about.
And you're not even guaranteed. I mean, obviously, if he's traded to the Lions and he's under contract, he has to report, blah, blah, blah. But, I mean, if I'm Le'Veon Bell, look, they can't. If they traded him to any team, that team cannot sign him until after the season's over. And if I make it to the end of the season, if I'm Le'Veon Bell, I'm putting myself on that free agent market and going to the highest bidder.
Same logic, right? I mean, maybe that team that trades for him says we're going to give you the Todd Gurley or better contract, and so it's a done deal. But why wouldn't you, when you've gotten that far, why not at least take all 28 other phone calls?
Exactly. That's the thing that people are missing here now. Is there a team that's going to be willing to have him as a rental for however long? I just find it unfathomable to think that a team would give up anything of substance for a guy that they're not sure is even going to be in their organization past 6-7 games or whatnot. It just does not make sense. I was surprised to Rich Eisen, the same Rich Eisen that corrected Kurt Warner and Michael Irvin a few days ago about the situation with Le'Veon Bell, goes on his own podcast and says the Lions should trade for Le'Veon Bell. It blew my mind that came out of his mouth, and it amazes me that people to this point right now where we're at now still don't get that they can't sign Le'Veon Bell even if they traded for him. It just blows my mind how the major, it just goes to show you that, man, the major media, especially in the sports world, is just way off base.
Fair enough.
All right, let me hop down off of this box. Okay, we will have Adam from ESPN on the Friday show previewing the Chiefs and the Steelers. We will go over what's happened on the injury report and get on into really talking about this game at home at Heinz Field. Jerome Bogar, the ladies' man, is going to be refereeing that game as well too. TJ Watt named defensive player, AFC Defensive Player of the Week this morning as well. Should that first sack be taken away from him, David?
I mean, I think your logic's right, but usually they do that by Wednesday, so we'll see if it happens today.
We'll see indeed if that happens by it. Wouldn't surprise. I think Javon Hargrave should get credit for it because the play was blown dead a second and a half before TJ even gets there, and it looks like Hargrave has a hold of him. So we'll see if that changes later on today. But look, that does not mean I hate TJ Watt, people, okay? All due respect to Watt, I just think that sack should go to Hargrave, okay? It does not mean that I hate TJ Watt. In the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. You can follow David Todd on Twitter at David M. Todd. You can follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast at gmail.com. If you like what we do and you want to donate to the cause, please go to SteelersDepot.com and hit that donate button upper right navigational bar. Also, if you like going to Steelers Depot and you don't want to see those ads, we set up an ad-free subscription for the site. Costs you $25 for 1 calendar year from the time you sign up, and you will have access mobile, desktop, however you log on to the site. Then ad-free version that's gone over real well since we instituted that and got all the bugs worked out. And until Friday, David.
Friday, stay dry. As always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Dave.